Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Priya Chatterjee Ray and I graduated from the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad or IIM Ahmedabad in 2023. For the past 6 months or so, I've been running this YouTube channel where I've been sharing information and data, knowledge, etc. with you to sort of bridge the gap between MBA aspirants like you and successful B school students so that you have all the necessary knowledge that is required to crack your MBA entrance tests and get into the B schools of your dreams. Now, a very important aspect of that is knowing the kind of questions that are asked in GDPIs and preparing for the same. MBA interview transcripts or IIM interview transcripts are always very, very high in demand because they give you an idea as to what you need to prepare. And my own MBA transcripts have been some of the most requested videos on this channel. I'm trying my best to collate all of them and I will have them up in the near future. But when I sat and I thought about it, I realized that my interviews took place nearly 3 years ago. They took place during COVID, so they were mostly online, and I'm not sure how helpful they would be to you in your preparation, which is why I decided to launch this new series. Now, most of you wouldn't know this, but I've been simultaneously running this semi-formal GDPI preparation program, which has brought me in touch with a lot of MBA aspirants like you who took the CAT exam or cracked the CAT this year and got calls from some of the best B schools in the country. What this series of videos aims to do is bring out their MBA interview experiences, the transcripts of their interviews with the different IIMs, and I'm going to try my best to share them with you on this channel. What this will do is basically bring you face to face with some profiles that might match your own so that you can prepare for the questions that these people were asked in their interviews if their profile matches yours, so that you know the kind of questions you're being asked in real time and so that you can prepare better for your profile, your role, your college, etc. And it also will give you an idea of the level of preparation your competitors have at this stage. I do hope that this series will be helpful for you. If you think that this is a good idea and if you want to see more such videos, make sure to leave a comment below letting me know the kind of profile you have and what kind of MBA transcripts you want to see, and I will try my best to have them for you. That said, we will now move into the first of the videos in this series, which is with a friend of mine by the name of Ram Gupta, who has been so kind as to come and share his entire interview experience with us on the channel instead of just sharing his transcript in an anonymous manner. So I will be connecting with him on Zoom and he will tell us all about his interview with IIM Lucknow. Make sure to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and thank Ram in the comments for being so helpful. With that, let's connect with Ram and let's discuss his interview with IML. Okay. Hi, Ram.
Hi, Priya, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
All good.
Okay, great. So I've already given an introduction to this video, so they know that you're here to share your interview transcript. Let's just start with the simple facts.
Sure.
Which college,
Uh,
the date, and where it was held.
so the interview we are talking about is the IIM Lucknow interview. It was held in Noida only in IIM Lucknow's Noida campus. My interview was scheduled for 29th of January, the morning slot, so 8:30 a.m. reporting time.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your academic background? So 10, 12, and college scores?
It's 9, 9, and 9.
Perfect. With a consultant's dream, that's how you get all your shortlists. Any work experience? If so, how many months? And if you can tell us about the industry.
Yes, so the work experience is a little over 1 year, so 13 months. And the industry it was a fintech startup based out of Chandigarh.
Okay. And the final background question, what was your degree in college?
BMS, so Bachelor's in Management.
Okay. Before the interview, let's talk about your WAT, written ability test. What was it like? Can you walk us through it, the topic, the experience?
So the topic was fairly straightforward, industrialization for or against. So this was the topic, and we were given 20 minutes from the moment the topic was announced. Yeah, and the word limit was 300 words.
Okay, so what sort of did you get writing sheets? How much time did you have to think about it? What did you write? Walk us through
So
that.
my experience, like I didn't do very well on my WAT because there was no rough sheet that was given. So I am in the habit of structuring my thoughts for the first 3 to 5 minutes, depending upon the complexity of the topic. And because I couldn't do this, also I got a bit of peer pressure because the girl right beside me started writing from the first second itself. And she was, yeah, slamming her pen so hard, like I could literally hear what she was writing, so to speak. So I also got in that FOMO, and I also started writing from the 20 or 30th second mark. I hadn't structured my thoughts by then, and because of which the what was not very well structured, I'd say, the thing that I wrote. Also, it lacked a certain material, so the points didn't have that much rigor in them or that much material in them
Okay, so what I'm
based on the
taking away,
topic.
yeah, so what I'm taking away from this is that it was a fairly straightforward topic, but they
Yeah,
didn't give you rough sheets to sort of get your thoughts together, and there was like peer pressure of people who had started writing already. It happens every time.
yeah,
So that was a little lacking in terms of not being able to structure your thoughts, because 300 words get over before you even start writing.
yeah.
So it's too little, not enough time to structure your thoughts. Okay, makes
Also, if the
sense.
word limit is 250, 300, or
Hmm.
350 words, don't be too cautious about the time limit, because you'd get, like, I had 2 minutes to spare. And this is when
Hmm.
I, in the middle, because 300 words is a bit less, I'm used to
Hmm.
400 words. So I was counting the words, like having a rough estimate of the words
Hmm.
in between. So I anyway wasted more than 3.5 minutes purely.
Okay.
And then again, another couple of minutes in the confusion of what to write. So
Okay.
take the first 5 minutes. If the word limit is under 350 words, you can easily take the first 5 minutes and structure your thoughts well. Because it would take less than 10 minutes for you to write it
Okay.
down.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think everyone should remember that. Let's talk about your actual interview. Tell us about how long it was, what number you were on, in terms of the people on the panel, and tell us a little bit about your interviewers. Just like describe their personalities to me.
Sure. So I guess there were 10 panels uh, in our batch, and each
Hmm.
panel had 10 students and two interviewers each for each panel.
Okay.
So my number was, like, I was second last on my batch, so my number was ninth. And the average interview duration was less than 15 minutes, but my particular interview was around 8 to 9 minutes for some reason. And as far as the personalities of the interview is concerned, there were two interviewers, female, both females. One was a fairly younger professor, and she basically focused on the HR questions and tried to get
Hmm.
to know about me, like what I did, why I chose to do something, and what did I gain from it. And the second interviewer, from what I hear, was a supply chains professor. But I'm not sure this was what the other people had discussed, because since I was second last, so I
Hmm.
heard a lot of buzz. And she asked fairly directed questions and academic questions.
Okay, so you got to speak to the people who had already done their interview.
Yeah, we did get to speak to some of them. Just some were just passing by, so we heard a couple of questions or
Okay.
something like that, and their experience how it was. So
Okay.
everybody stayed for like 2 to 5 minutes, depending upon.
Do you have any idea if there was a repetition in questions? Like if they ask the same logic or math question, maybe to two, three people?
They asked math questions, but from only one was a CS engineer, and the second
Hmm.
one they asked a math question was, he had a bachelor's in mathematics only. I don't know the course
Okay.
name, but he was a math student only.
Okay.
And the questions were also fairly simple. Like, even I knew the
Okay.
questions.
But like, were they repetitive? So does it help to speak to someone who went before you?
I
Or
would
were they
suggest
different?
I wouldn't suggest speaking to anybody.
Hmm.
Uh, Also, it's not ideal because some of the people made gangs there, and they were questioned by the people who were coordinating. So, not the professors,
Right.
but people who were
Right.
coordinating. So, they were told not to do this a couple
Not
of
to
times.
discuss. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Fair.
Yeah. Also, it won't help you personally. This is what I felt, because you would get into this zone of, yeah, ye question aaya tha, let's quickly
Hmm.
look at the answer. But the
Hmm.
point being, the interviewers are also experienced, and they mostly didn't repeat those questions. And
Yeah.
your questions would be based on your tell me about yourself answer.
Hmm.
At least this is what I experienced. If you'd unnecessarily get deviated from your core story,
Hmm.
which is 80% of your interview for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
for that fleeting 10-15%, which might or might not hit.
Yeah, I think I'm very glad you picked this up because it happens a lot. People really bombard the rest of the people on their panel trying to find out what the questions were. It hardly ever helps. It's not like they're asking the same puzzle to everyone or the same question to everyone.
Hmm.
You're usually just working yourself up by doing it. You get nervous and then more chances of ruining an interview than actually cracking an interview.
Also, in shorter questions, in shorter duration interviews, I feel rather than knowing all the factoids, what works more is how you have weaved your story because that is what would
Hmm.
stick with the interviewer.
Hmm.
So if you don't know one or two questions, it's basically fine because they also understand that it was a very short interview, and
Hmm.
it's not necessary that if you're a math question, you are expected to know that particular question that they
Hmm.
asked, for example. So
Fair.
no point of doing that, in my opinion.
Fair. That's great advice, I think. Let's talk about the actual interview. When you walked in, did you greet them? Did they greet you? How did it happen? Just tell me about introductions
Uh,
before we deal with questions.
One of the professors had a very like they asked me how I was, so I also asked them back. Like I said, I was fine. How are you?
Hmm.
How are you doing? And then I asked for their permission to sit down, and then the interview began with the very common question, "Tell me about yourself," which again the professor one. She kept asking those
This is
HR
the younger
questions.
professor.
The younger professor, yeah.
Okay.
So she started asking the HR questions, and the first 3 to 5 minutes of my interview were revolved around the "tell me about yourself" answer only that I gave.
Okay, so this is 4 minutes out of your 9-minute interview.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's.
After my initial answer, like around 60 75 seconds.
Okay, so you gave a 60-75 second response to the tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Did they interrupt you in the middle, or did they let
Uh,
you finish it?
They did not. I guess they were also reading the transcript by that point of time,
Hmm.
reading my profile, or at least looking at it. I can't
Hmm.
they definitively say what they were doing, but that is what they were doing, and they were also the younger professor P1 was also nodding at a lot of the stress points that I had. So I could
Fair.
P1 was actively listening while P2 was
Reading
reading my
your.
profile, going through my profile. Yeah.
Okay, fair. I think this is very important for everyone to know. Yeah, I've taken a bunch of interviews, mock interviews for students. This wasn't Ram, but like other mock interview students who come and give the most boring tell me about yourself answers. It starts with I was born and brought up here, I went to school here, I got this much marks, then I got an award for getting these many marks, then I went to college here. It's the most boring answer. They already have it on the profile, so it doesn't really help. Ram, of course, has a very interesting tell me about yourself, which I'm not going to tell him to share. He can share it later if he wants to, with y'all. But it stresses about your, let's say, your experiences in life in general. But it's not about where you went to school or what you did in college. It's more about the things you've achieved, but bringing out your personality as well. So then you said the next 3-4 minutes were about the tell me about yourself. Can you tell us which areas they touched on? Don't have to tell us the questions, which areas they touched on and the kind of question they asked. So were they trying to get into your history with that specific area of your life, or were they trying to get to know GK about that? Like usually we know that when
Uh,
there's a work experience
hmm.
question, they start asking you GK about the industry. So that's what was it like?
The nature of the questions was not factual at all, barring the couple of academic questions that were asked.
Hmm.
Rest of the spheres of my life, there were no there were no fact-based questions, which I had definitely prepared. Like if let's say if you play a sport, you need to get into the PE annoying questions.
Hmm.
How much is the net length? How much is the racket?
Yeah.
How long is your bat? कितने yards की pitch है if you play cricket and all of that, the
Hmm.
diameter of the ball. You need to know all of this. These kind of questions weren't asked from me particularly. And
So
I
what,
had
I'm just interrupting you. So what were the follow-up questions to your tell me about yourself?
So I have 3 to 4 hooks. One is academic, one is sports based, and a couple of some of the extracurricular achievements that I've had either in college or in my personal life.
Hmm.
So these are the 4 hooks that I have. So the leading questions were from the rest of the 3 hooks, which are non-academic. So
Hmm.
they were about that. The questions being like what was this activity? Because one is a fairly new, like it's not a standard activity. So the first professor wanted to know about it, like what
Hmm.
exactly it is and what I did, how I added value to it. Then they moved on to different spheres, and yeah, that was about it.
So would you say that they were trying to approach it from like a curiosity point of view because they were interested in knowing what you had done?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
There was no stress interview at that point of time, and it was more like a conversation.
Okay, so they've asked you some follow-up questions to your tell me about yourself. They've captured the hooks that you wanted them to go to. They've basically asked you to explain a little bit more about
Yeah.
whatever what has happened. Okay. So this part of the interview is over. What happens next?
Then the second professor jumps in, and she started focusing more on the academic part of it. Asked me a couple of questions pertaining to my course,
Hmm.
and then yeah, that was about it. And then she also focused. The good part about my profile, I feel, is diversity. Like I have a
Hmm.
diverse set of experiences, but she focused more. Like she wrapped it around like you have diversity that is given, that is fine.
Hmm.
But how would you focus on academics when you join IIM Lucknow? If you join
Okay.
IIM Lucknow, and whether you'd be able to handle the academic pressure. So her focus was more on that aspect.
Okay. So would you say that P2 after the first, like after P1's tell me about yourself, HR questions, did she try to turn it into a stress interview a little bit?
Yeah, indirectly she did eventually. I
Okay.
realized it later on after my
Okay.
interview.
So
I
what
couldn't
were the
realize it then.
yeah, that's good as long as you didn't take stress then. So for the BMS students out there, what were the academic questions she asked you?
One was about convertible debentures. Then it was about it started with types of equities,
Hmm.
and then it was about preference shares. So then she asked the leading questions if preference shares are also convertible. At that point of time, I fumbled, even though I gave the right answer, but I wasn't very confident about it.
Hmm.
So on that, I fumbled, and she picked up on that and built upon that.
Okay.
And the next question was about AT1 bonds, which are additional tier one bonds.
Hmm.
And I unfortunately was not aware. This was the only current affair that I had missed. And I guess they asked a current affair indirectly because
Yeah.
81 bonds were involved with the Yes Bank crisis 3 years
So
back,
yeah,
and then in the Swiss bank collapse.
about a year
So,
ago. Yeah.
yeah. So, not really a current affair, but something that a
I mean,
finance
it's
person
it's
should know.
an intersection maybe between your degree and your and something that's happened in the current affairs.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so you didn't know that. How did you answer the question?
I thought about it for a couple of seconds, and I said that I'm really sorry, I'm not able to recall after.
Okay, what was the response to you saying that you didn't know?
Nothing. They just nodded, and the academic set of questions were over for me.
Okay, so then okay, academics is done. So what's the next part of the interview?
Uh, the second professor again reiterated that how you'd be able to handle the academic rigor here. And this was again vindicated by the two academic questions that she had asked,
Hmm.
and I wasn't able to answer them properly. Both the questions, I feel. So
Okay.
then she brought back the point that how you'd be able to manage the academic pressure here. You'd get distracted again.
Okay, so basically focusing on the fact that you have a diverse profile and adding that you maybe weren't able to answer the academic questions as well as
Yeah,
she had liked. Okay, so how did you
yeah,
answer
that
that
is what
question?
I feel. I just mentioned that. There be obviously a factor of the environment that is there, my
Hmm.
peers and the academic rigor of IIM Lucknow itself.
Hmm.
This was one core point that I built upon. And secondly, I also focused more on what I gathered from those extracurriculars,
Hmm.
how those skills are transferable to whatever problems I've then approached. And then building upon that, I'm not too fixated on my extracurriculars.
Hmm.
Rather, the transferable skills, applied them in my job, so I have
Okay.
the work experience that I had. So I tackled it in these 2 points, one being the environment and second being the transferable skills from those
If I had
extracurriculars.
to give like a personal opinion, I think it's good that you brought up IIM Lucknow's academic rigor. It shows that you've done your research about the college, which professors always appreciate that.
Hmm.
Um, Funnily enough, I was also asked. So IIM Lucknow and IIM Ahmedabad, also IIM Shillong, whose interview I skipped because I was sleeping. I it was really early in the morning and I'd forgotten that it was that day, so I never did that. But IIM Ahmedabad and Lucknow have very academic focus courses, so to speak, and they
Hmm.
also ask academic questions a lot. And I was also asked a few academic questions in my interviews, and I couldn't answer them. And I was asked the same question. If you can't answer this much, how are you going to manage the amount of academic pressure that's it happens.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the next question. Any other after your answer, what was their response like? Was there any follow-up, any other questions?
There was one follow-up which was again on these lines. Like I kind of summed up two answers, the 2 points that I gave. And then the professor, according to me, didn't look much convinced by my answer, and they ended the interview there.
Okay, so they just said, thanks, you're done.
Yeah, they said thank you.
Okay. Did they offer you the infamous toffee?
No, it was there. I was also hoping I'd get it.
Okay.
Because again, more than giving the interview, it's more weird to pick up the candy, go there and pick up the candy. So that is why I had it in the back of my mind. But fortunately, unfortunately, they didn't ask me to do that. So
Okay.
I just collected my documents and
Oh, but
it
were
went.
there toffees in that bowl or was it
Yeah,
empty?
yeah,
Since you were
yeah,
the
yeah.
second last person?
I was the second last person, and funnily enough, the last three people of my batch didn't get offer candies. So
Well, are you sure the bowl wasn't empty?
yeah, it wasn't. It had pulse in it.
Okay. But that's
Yeah,
the choice of the season. Okay, fair. So that
yeah.
wrapped up your interview. Basically, tell me about yourself, a few leading questions, dealing with the hooks in your tell me about yourself,
Hmm.
a little bit back and forth about the diversity of your profile and academics, then some academic questions, and then questioning you on whether or not academics plus GK almost, and then questioning you on whether or not you can handle the academic pressure with no toffee.
Yeah, two things. Two things. One is adding to what you said, and one thing I forgot to mention. I'm really sorry. There was also one question about my work experience, particularly what my role was. Like that's about it. They
Yeah,
didn't
okay.
ask any leading question, no current affair question, no technical question, because my work was also related to finance in some sense. So there were no leading questions there.
So
And
they were just
adding,
trying to understand your job profile or what your day-to-day life. What was the question like?
just trying to understand my role and what I could have
Okay,
gathered possibly.
cool.
And yeah, adding to the GK point, the GK that was asked, I got this from a couple of other people also, was related to their domain.
Okay.
So let's say in my case, it was not a current affair like Ram Mandir, since I get asked this question quite a
Because your
lot because
name's Ram.
yeah. So there were no GK questions per se. It was a directed concept-based question of what happened in that particular scenario and whether you have done that in-depth research that you know that
Okay.
81 bonds were the first ones to be called off.
Fair,
So
fair.
investor money was lost there. So it was more related to your domain. So dig deeper into the questions that are from your domain, the current affairs that are from your domain, and others. If you just if you are there is a paucity of time, you can always just skim through them, form a basic opinion, get an idea of what is going on, and you, I feel, don't have that much of need of digging down, reading tens of documents about it. But the things that which are definitely from your domain, if you're in finance or the bank crisis and all of that, if you're a pol science student, then how BJP did, like their manifesto and versus what they did, and the
Yeah.
general elections, you're supposed to have opinions on this if that is your
Right.
specialization. So dig deeper on those current affair topics, I
Yeah,
feel.
it's especially for the pol science students. It's an election year. Actually, not just for pol science students, it's for everyone. It's
Yeah.
an election year. You can get asked any questions. The budget has just come out.
Yeah, for
The
finance people, budget again. Specifically for commerce and finance people, for others as well, definitely. Especially if you're a CA student.
lucky students that it's an interim budget because it's an election year. The budget
Yeah.
in my year was so long. It was, I think I read, the summary I read was like 100 pages or something. Or was, I think the summary of the economic
Which
survey was
summaries are
100.
you reading? Like I'm getting 4 or 5 page infographics and I'm fine with
You
that.
know, I went into UPSC summaries of the budget and the economic survey. I think the 100-page one was for the economic survey, not the budget. That is, the economic survey came out
Yeah.
in 2 volumes.
Hmm.
I read the whole thing. I don't know why, but okay, fine. So that's, I think, great advice as well. Thank you, Ram. We'll end with you telling everyone what your other calls are so that they know what other transcripts they can expect on the channel.
Okay, so I have all the IIM calls, Blackie, SAP, and
Woohoo!
CAP. Yeah, lucky for me. And then I also appeared for Snap, NMAT, and ZAT. So I have calls from all the three top institutes from there, and also an SPJN call.
Okay, great. So I think we'll see you next time when we're discussing any of that. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure, sure.
And we'll end this interview here and I'll stop recording.
Okay.